Hello, my name is Nigel Denyer. I'm a specialist nurse practitioner in North Tyneside, Cams, and this short clip is aiming to give people who watch it a better understanding about what ADHD is, how it is a neurodevelopmental condition, and basic principles of how to support a young person with ADHD. So I'll just go straight to how I explain it in clinic. And here we go. So I'm certainly not paid as an artist, but this is how I found out the best way of describing what ADHD is. Amazing, they look the same and similar each time I do this. So, there we go. So when I ask people what this is, there's normally one of two answers, and that's either hair or what it actually is the brain. So ADHD is better now understood as a neurodevelopmental condition. It used to be viewed as one of the most common behaviour conditions in childhood, but now it's seen, because of research into the brain and development, it's now seen as a neurodevelopmental. So this is the brain, the neuro, and it's about how the brain develops, neurodevelopmental. So what through imaging and in research, what we see is when we scan people's brains who have ADHD and see what parts work and what parts glowing red and yellow on the scans, the functional MRI scans, we see that this part of the brain isn't glowing as much, and it's more this part of the brain. So you use myself, instead of this part of the brain, the executive functioning is grown when I would be trying to concentrate on something that doesn't grab my attention, trying to focus. What we see is parts of the brain around here, so parts of the brain that weren't really designed to do the job. And when we treat ADHD, so we talk about treatment of ADHD if chosen with medication, with its impact, or we talk support about ADHD. Treatment and support both aim to assist this frontal part of the brain. And when we treat ADHD, what we see is this part of the brain starts glowing red and yellow and messages start coming through. We'll talk a little bit about treatment and support in a little while. So, as I say, this is past 10-15 years we've gained a better understanding of this. What we do know though, longer term, that this part of the brain deals with organising focus on things that don't grab our attention, organising ourselves in time and space, getting ourselves to a place in a timely manner and back with all our things, and also dealing with our responses. I can't spell it, save me life. There we go, there's an admission. Is it a C, is it an S? I don't know.
S.
S, thank you very much. Also deals a bit about motivation to continue with things when we're struggling with them. So we know this part of the brain deals with this. This part of the brain, more animalistic, more hunter-gatherer. It is more the emotions, creativity, nature, natural world, hunter-gatherer. And what we see, as I said earlier before, this part of the brain messages aren't getting through, so these things are more difficult. This part of the brain, more base instinct part of the brain, it's having a bit of a free ride. It's not really being controlled by this part, so those kind of take over a little bit, or can do. As I want to make it really clear, everybody with ADHD is different. ADHD, ADD, everyone's different. So this is just generalisation. You're a young person, or yourself as a young person, Yeah, everyone's different. Interestingly, this part of the brain isn't fully developed in women till they're 25, men till they're 30. So it is, when we're younger, we do find it difficult to focus on the more boring stuff, being organised, and we are, especially little toddlers, their responses are very honest. If they feel cross, they'll shout. If they're happy, they'll laugh and dance. So it is very much ordinary development. Very roughly, about probably 50% of people roughly still have symptoms into adulthood. In childhood, we're better able to identify boys than girls, so it looks like there's a lot more boys to girls diagnosed. But what we're probably finding out more and more now is that we're just not that good at detecting girls with ADHD as well as boys. Lots of reasons for that. Yeah, here we go. So in general, I'll ask for a bit of audience participation here from the camera lady. General things in CAMS that you see that people with ADHD generally find it more easy to concentrate on. What sort of things would you?
More easy to focus on things like video games.
So electronics.
Yeah, electronics. Building things with Legos and
so
building
Lego,
blocks.
So kind of say hands-on.
Yeah, very hands-on.
I'll put you on the spot there. So what I see as well are things like that really can kind of concentrate on like puppies and dogs and cats.
Animals.
So animals. And also seem to be able to concentrate better when they are in the natural world. So what I mean by that is when they kind of it walks in the countryside, very organic areas, as opposed to Northumberland Street, busy shops. So areas whereby there's a kind of the natural world, rivers go from high to low, trees grow up, grass grow up, everything's got in order, whereas supermarkets, busy shopping streets, there's lots of stuff coming at you in all different directions, quite brutal, I suppose would be a terminology. So those are the things that people with ADHD generally find it easier to concentrate on. And things that people find with ADHD find it more difficult to concentrate on would be?
Homework, school, anything really that you've got to stay focused on and organise yourself to do, basically.
Staying focused. So things like getting up and ready on the morning and getting ready to go to bed.
Yep.
So morning and night routine. Right. So what I ask, and I won't ask Ashley yet, what I ask is, what part of the brain, when I'm doing this with young people and to parents and such like, what part of the brain do you think these things would kind of trigger? And kind of what we usually would see is that things like the electronics, so like creative games, competitive games, they're working much on the emotions. Lego, constructions, creativity, animals, nature, put together. So we're kind of seeing that this part of the brain, think about your young person, think about you yourself, what sort of things you can kind of concentrate on without really trying, that you find it easy. And then this part of the brain, getting homework done, doing stuff that's new, that you're not particularly interested in, schoolwork, things where you need to sustain your focus, like tidying your bedroom or doing a job, morning routine, nighttime routine. It's kind of this part of the brain. Yeah, and what it looks like is that a person is choosing to focus on these things and choosing not to focus on these things. What it is that the brain acts like a magnet for those things. So, as I say, N and S, north and south, like a magnet, and there's no real effort to concentrate on those things. Those things grab the attention. and actually feels quite nice, because if you find it difficult to concentrate on things, you kind of you're looking for things that can kind of really stimulate you, can give you some quick feedback. This part, so that's like a magnet. This is more like a spider thread. Try your best, and each time you try, rabbit, get distracted, and yeah. So it can be really disheartening, because no matter how hard you try, it's just really, really hard. And the busier place you're in, so for the busier the house, the busier the class, the busier the environment, the more challenging it's going to be. And people can affect people's self-esteem, how they feel about themselves. They kind of think they're maybe not as clever as they actually are. And one thing about ADHD, some of the real geniuses, some of the great people have we would look back now and think, well, they probably had ADHD. It's nothing to do about intelligence. It's just about how you support it to fully utilise that. That's kind of how I describe ADHD. This is the part when I don't see any questions. So write the questions down if you have any questions, and ask it to the person, your CAMS key worker. And if they don't know, they can always come to me, and I'll do my best. But it's this thing about responses. When I talk to young people about how they're supported, and how they're supported, and how the treatment works, I ask them, when we get to the support and treatment right, I'll use an example. A young person who I reviewed, really, really struggling at school. They were nearly out of school, really struggling at home, because they were just telling people what they thought about them, and getting really cross and frustrated, and things were escalating all the time. Got the treatment, and for that person it was medication. We're not saying that there's no need for everyone to be on medication for ADHD, but sometimes if it is impacting, then we look at that. Got treatment, supported right, and they started kind of being able to control themselves at home and school. And I asked them, I said, so got the treatment, and you're not, there's not challenges happening at home and school. Is it when you're in these difficult situations, do you still feel like shouting out and getting cross? They went, oh yes. They said, but now I have a moment to think and I can stop myself. So what we see is it just helps the person put the brakes on. So another way we describe ADHD is that it's like having a Ferrari engine, here we go, with bicycle brakes. Brakes? Hey, who cares? So Ferrari engine, bicycle brakes, and that can be a bit scary. If you're a 7-year-old and you've been given the keys to a Ferrari, like any self-respecting 7-year-old would want, when you set off, which is great, but what happens when you approach a corner? You keep crashing because you go for your brakes and they let you down. So it's just, it ain't easy having ADHD. So that's why we look at support. Support, I look at as a triangle, the young person in the middle, support at home, school, and if chosen, medication. Support at home is about positive behaviour management strategies, structure, routine, visual routines, now and next, how they're kind of supported externally from the brain, like scaffolding. There we go. Like a scaffolding on the outside, stuff to support this executive functioning. So visual routines, as I said, how they're supported vocally, verbally. So a young person with ADHD might say, can I have that chocolate cake in the fridge? If we're kind of going to press the accelerator on the engine, we might say, no, you can't until you've had your tea, which wouldn't be helpful. Or we could say, of course you can have it as soon as you had your tea. So it is kind of just things like that, how we frame that. I really want you to have your electronics tomorrow, and as long as you come off without a fuss, you'll get them tomorrow. Instead of, If you don't come off your computer now, you're not going to have it tomorrow. One, the other. Right? And that's kind of the scaffolding support. School, similar. Routines, support, and we talked about warming down after breaks. So if someone's really been running around having great fun after break, maybe when they come into the classroom, just a little bit of time, get into a routine, check the pencil case, maybe a little bit of staff attention just to help them calm down back into the lesson. Things at school. Let's try and spell school right. That's one thing I can't spell. And medication. Very briefly, and again you can talk to your clinician about this, whoever you're working with in CAMS. Medication, instead of the scaffolding outside, medication, let's do it red. Comes into the mouth, into the tummy, and then into the brain, and it just turns this part of the brain on. It increases the amount of noradrenaline and dopamine at different levels, and we hope that it will turn on this part of the brain so the messages get through, so the person is able, this strengthens this spider link, able to focus on the things that don't naturally grab their attention, and also to think before they act. So that's about impulse control and concentration. And yeah, that's about it. Any questions? Write them down. If you've got a diagnosis of ADHD, you'll have an appointment to discuss the treatment plan, how you're supported at home, school, and if chosen medication. You should be offered the New Forest Parenting Programme, which is a very good 6-week course, which goes into a lot of the kind of the scaffolding stuff, a lot of the kind of course you can have your cake after you've had your tea, that sort of stuff, how you word things, how to make things much more positive, the New Forest Parenting Programme. So how, because you know, if you've been impulsive and it gets tense at home, it can get a little bit on the downside, negative side. And the New Forest Parent Programme looks at focusing on the positives and building on the positives and helping to get a really good understanding of where your young person's coming from. Really good kind of evidence base from that, and gets really good feedback. So when you're offered a place, it'd be really worthwhile you're going on that. And that's it. Thank you very much for your time.